Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. It's game week. Rodney, more on that in a moment. But first, our program is brought to you each and every week by Buffalo Rock, bottlers of Pepsi-Cola products throughout the state of Alabama. And once again tonight, Pepsi Next is the direction I've gone in. Because I love it. Real cola taste, 60% less sugar. It's a great combination. You can have 2.5 of these for the amount of calories of one regular Pepsi, and you get that same great Pepsi taste. Now, Rod, to the matter at hand. It's game week for the Crimson Tide. Alabama will open the 2012 season on Saturday night in Arlington, Texas against the Michigan Wolverines. Now, not every program would want to open the season in a game of this caliber against an opponent of this quality, but Nick Saban said on Monday at his first weekly press conference of 2012, it's something Alabama has done in the past and will continue to do in the future.
We've had a game every year we've been here, and I know we had the Penn State home and home kind of in between where it was the second game, not the first game, but in every other circumstance, whether it was Florida State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, now this year, we've had an opponent that we've played in a sort of neutral site game or, sort of a national exposure type game, so to speak, and I think the players look forward to that. I think the fans look forward to that. And I think it's great for the off-season program, for the development of your team. It really gives the players something to look forward to in the first game. I think it gives the fans a lot to look forward to in the first game. So I think it's good for college football when we, have these kind of games. And we enjoy playing in them, and, it's going to be very challenging for us, and we'll certainly see where we are as a team.
That's true. When you play an opponent of this caliber, you find out right off the bat, Rod, where your football team is at and what you need to work on going forward the rest of the season, win or lose.
Yeah, and Gary, again, it also gives you an opportunity to really prepare for a big game early. And I know Coach Saban has talked about this repeatedly about what it does in terms of in the off season, how it gets guys going. It's something that you can work forward to. And let me tell you something, not only for Alabama, but we've talked about this many times. Michigan circled this game a long time ago. Since they lost that Sugar Bowl game to Virginia Tech, this is a game they've been focused on because, some of the people in their program, as tradition-rich as they are, have said this might be the biggest game in the history of their program.
Wow. More on Michigan in a moment. Right now, let's focus on the Tide. Big news today, Rodney. Finally, Nick Saban releases a depth chart. You've looked it over. Just your thoughts on the first depth chart of 2000.
Well, I think it was basically what we expected, Gary. You look at it offensively and defensively. Really, if you look at anything that might be, and I don't want to say a surprise, but maybe to those who don't have the opportunity out there to follow it, you look at that H-back position that was, last year Brad Smelly, and now you look at a walk-on Kelly Johnson. Just points out once again, and we've said this over and over many times about Nick Saban. If you go out and you do the things you have to do, and you create an opportunity for yourself to play, he'll give you that chance. And again, I think you see with a guy like Kelly Johnson that here's an opportunity for him to play.
Alabama's a 13-point favorite, and we'll have our prediction on the game and score later on in the show, so I don't want to give away exactly what we think of the game. But based on what you've seen from this team, and we'll talk more about Michigan in a moment, but if Alabama plays well, they should win the football game.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. When you look, Gary, both sides of the line of scrimmage, up front, that's where the games are going to be won and lost, and that's big for Alabama. It always has been since Nick Saban's been here. That's been the focal point, and when you look at it, Michigan lost 3 guys up front offensively. They've moved some guys around. They've had some injuries. You look defensively, they're really not very big up front defensively. I think when you look at Alabama's offensive line, they can line up, hopefully, and establish the line of scrimmage and run the football. And if they do that, and they control the football and control the clock, you know what that means. Denard Robinson doesn't have very many opportunities.
All right, let's talk more about Michigan. When Alabama was down, you knew that the Tide would get back to the top. Too much pride, too much tradition, too many people that care about the program. Same thing with Michigan. They went through some lean years. Brady Hoke has very quickly reestablished this program, and much like Nick Saban did at Alabama, not just in terms of winning games, but in the style of play. They're back to playing old school Michigan football. Even with Denard Robinson, they're spreading it out some on offense, but they're getting tough, they're getting physical. Al Borges, the offensive coordinator, had a great run at Auburn, and then was with San Diego State with Brady Hoke there. But let's talk about their opportunity, and you can tell Brady Hoke is biting at the bit. They had a huge win over Virginia Tech in the Sugar Bowl last year. But this is an opportunity for them, not just to say, hey, we're back in terms of being Michigan, but if they win this game, they're a legitimate contender for the national championship themselves.
Oh, no doubt about it. But, you know, when you look at them, Gary, certainly they are replacing some guys, as I mentioned up front, on offense and defense. You know, if they were to win this game, certainly they would catapult themselves up. They're number 8 right now in one poll, and they would certainly, you know, be a huge win for their program. But, and you mentioned Brady Hoke, going back to last year, the thing that he really did that impressed me, Gary, was in the close games, they found ways most of the time to win those. They went 11-2, but, you know, you remember the Notre Dame game early on. You remember the Virginia Tech game in the Sugar Bowl. They were probably outplayed in that game, but they found ways to win. And reinstilling that winning attitude, that's what he's done. They're a tradition-rich program. They expect to win, and, you know, he's recruited really well, even though it's early in his tenure.
6 starters back on offense, 8 on defense. Of course, we know about Denard Robinson. His numbers are unbelievable. Nick Saban yesterday said he's, you know, the best player that Alabama has faced since Cam Newton, that type of player. Physically, they don't resemble each other, but in terms of his impact. But let's talk about Fitz Toussaint, the running back, over 1,000 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. He had a driving while under the influence incident, was suspended, but it looks now like he's going to play. He's listed number 1 on the depth chart.
Yeah, I think he got a lesser charge now, and it looks like, you know, he may actually play in that game. You look at Denard Robinson as a quarterback, led the team in rushing last year with 1,176 yards. 2 years ago, set the NCAA record with over 1,700 yards rushing as a quarterback. Decent thrower, too, over 2,000 yards, completed only 55% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, but 15 interceptions last year. And you bring Toussaint into the mix, Gary, certainly a 1,000-yard rusher. So that they give them 2 really good guys in terms of, you know, their ground attack, and with the improvement of Denard Robinson as a passer, certainly they have some balance there. But again, really, you know, their focal point is trying to run the football. And, you know, when they throw it, Denard Robinson's very dangerous, as you know, pulling it down, you pressure him. You know, Alabama's been working a lot this week on the techniques, Gary, of trying not to have their pass rushers leave their feet, because the natural thing to do is when you're closing in on the quarterback and he pumps to throw the football is to leave your feet. You do that on Denard Robinson, he's gone.
All right, defensively, they've gotten a little bigger up front, which they'll need some size against that big Alabama offensive line. Well, still to come, our predictions on the game later on. And also tonight on Tider Insider TV, the inspirational story of Crimson Tide long snapper Carson Tinker has gone from tragedy to triumph. And we'll be taking your phone calls and getting to your emails as well. The number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, TITV@WVUATV.com. Stick around. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Welcome back to TITV. Rodney will rejoin me in just a moment. Long snapper Carson Tinker will play his final season for second-ranked Alabama on scholarship. Crimson Tide coach Nick Saban said last week the former walk-on is getting a full ride for his senior year. Tinker was thrust into the spotlight April 27, 2011 by tragedy. His girlfriend, Ashley Harrison, was killed by the tornado after both were thrown about 50 yards from the closet where they huddled. He suffered some pretty bad injuries as well. Tinker said Saban summoned him into the office last week and gave him the good news. He said the news is a financial relief for his parents, and Coach Saban said he's happy to be able to do it.
Carson Tinker has been awarded a scholarship, you know, for this season. He's a senior. He's been a starting long snapper, I think, for 3 years now. He's certainly been a leader in the community and done a tremendous amount of community service. You know, really received the Disney Spirit Award in terms of some of the things that he's accomplished personally in terms of his community service.
I mean, that's awesome for him. I mean, the guy works hard. He's one of our team leaders. So that's definitely a cool experience for him, and I'm awesome. You know, I'm glad I glad for him.
He told me yesterday, on Monday, that we have one available and we want you to have it. And I mean, yeah, that was a great feeling. I gave him a hug. I gave Coach a hug. So he was, he's coach. So I don't know if he liked that or not, but yes, I am very thankful.
I mean, I get excited when I see that story because he has worked so hard. You take him for granted because he never seems to make a mistake. Knock on wood, don't want to jinx him. He won the Disney Spirit Award last year because of what he went through with the devastating tornado. And, I think a lot of people were disappointed when Brandon Hill didn't make it into school, the big offensive tackle signee, but that freed up a scholarship, and I think you'll agree with me, Rodney, that he's very deserving.
Yeah, great story, Gary, and he certainly has represented everything well and on and off the field. And, again, it's just a fantastic story, and you're glad to see that he's rewarded with it in the end.
All right, recruiting news. Alabama picked up a commitment this past Friday. The Tide always wants a big defensive line signing class. You win in the trenches in the SEC. The latest commitment, not a surprise. He was thought to be leaning to Alabama. DeMarcus Walker, 6'4", 275 pounds, Sandalwood High School in Jacksonville, Florida. Rodney, as a football player, what does he bring?
Very talented, Gary. Obviously, one of the best in the country. Alabama nipped, several schools for him that wanted him. So, he's a very talented kid that will only add to the defensive talent on that side of the ball, whether he plays jack linebacker or whether he plays defensive end.
All right, the latest commitment for Alabama, the recruiting class is filling up. There's still some slots available. For all the latest recruiting news, check out Rodney's site, TiderInsider.com. Rod, this is an interesting story about a former Alabama player. Virginia will face off against Richmond this Saturday, and their starting quarterback won't be Alabama transfer Phillip Sims. UVA's updated depth chart was released on Monday, and incumbent starter Michael Rocco, who passed for well over 2,000 yards last year, is listed as the starter, with Sims as the backup and David Watford as third string. Now, Sims lost out on the starting job at Alabama last season to A.J. McCarron and made his intentions to transfer known following spring practice, citing personal reasons, which are legitimate, his father having some health issues. At the same time, it was apparent to everybody he didn't enjoy being a backup here. The feeling amongst people that were close to him was that he would go into Virginia and win that starting job. It hasn't happened. You a little surprised?
Well, no, not really, because you're talking about a guy in Rocco who had, threw for 2,600 yards last year, was very successful, and, understood the offense. And not only that, he had a chemistry with the other players there on the offense at Virginia, and he's really well liked.
Right.
So, to go in and kind of unseat that, Gary, it's a very difficult thing to do, and it puts his coach in a tough situation, because from the standpoint of, here's a highly regarded kid coming in from in-state that was so, well-known, legendary, quite honestly, in the state of Virginia, Phillip Sims was. But, you certainly have to go with the guy who is best for your team at this point, and obviously it's Rocco.
Yeah, Sims received a waiver from the NCAA because of his dad's health condition, and was eligible to play immediately, but at least right now, not the starter there in Charlottesville. Well, still to come, we'll make our predictions for Saturday night's big matchup between Alabama and Michigan at Cowboy Stadium. And don't forget, coming up next, we'll take your phone calls. The line to reach us is 205-348-WVOA. That's 348-9882. Call in now, because we're going to take phone calls and when we come back after the break. Also, if you'd rather just email us, you can do so, TITV@WVUATV.com. We're back with your phone calls right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tider Insider Television on your home team station, WVUA-TV. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Let's take some phone calls. Rod, first up tonight, our buddy LD over there in Center, Alabama. LD, what's up?
Not much. With the new year, of course, you got new players. I was wondering if they had someone that they could depend on to rush the quarterback on a regular basis.
LD, it's a great question, and it's funny that you asked that. We didn't even know what his question was going to be. I was just sitting here thinking about, as we were looking over the depth chart, what Coach Saban had to say about Adrian Hubbard yesterday. He just came out and said, we think he can get after the quarterback. He has played some as a freshman last year, but 6'6", up to about 250 pounds, quick first step. I think they're counting on him to really harass him.
Yeah, very athletic, Gary. No question about that. We saw what he did in the spring game when he, pretty much showed out. And not only him, Xavier Dixon's another young player. It's a sophomore that has some pass rushing skills that I think you'll see developed, and also a freshman to watch out for who's made the two deep at the jack linebacker spot, Denzel Duvall from Bastrop, Louisiana. Gary, number 2 player in the state of Louisiana, behind Landon Collins, who, of course, signed with Alabama, too, as a safety and will probably play this year as well. So, but as far as pass rushing goes, Duvall has cracked that 2 deep, so those are just some of the guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I always like the way Coach Saban describes it, too, as affecting the quarterback. It's not necessarily getting a sack, is it? I mean, sometimes if they do get the ball off, worse things happen with interceptions and turnovers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're going to looking to harass the quarterback as always. Real quickly, let's talk to CB here in T-Town. How you doing, CB?
Gentlemen, what's going on? I tell you, there's a nice story on Carson Tinker, and he's a fine young man, a class act for college football. Just went and lost to Angel and Ashley. Just wondered why it took so long to get a scholarship, or is there a reason for that, or you know?
Well, just that's a position, to be real honest with you, CB, that don't scholarship very often. You know, most of your snappers, even a lot of your kickers and punters are walk-on players, and the fact that he's gotten one at all during his career is a major accomplishment for him. And as we've said, and you said, well-deserving. But it's just a position.
And you have to have a scholarship open.
That's right.
I mean, you do. And times are kind of changing. Gary mentioned that they don't often scholarship snappers, but now we see, with Alabama having one committed, that things are kind of changing in that regard.
All right, Rod, we've got a couple callers on hold. Stay there, wait on us, be patient. We're going to go ahead and take a break, pay some bills, and we'll be back with more phone calls right here on Tider Insider TV. Game Week Edition is here. We're back. Glad you're with us here on this Tuesday evening. Back to the phones we go. Mike in Birmingham. Hey, Mike, how are you?
How you doing, guys?
Doing great.
Roll Tide.
Yes, sir.
With Robert Lester locking down the safety position, I was curious of where y'all might think Vinny Cincinnati is going to end up.
Well, Mike, they're going to play a lot of DBs, number one, and they're going to play 2 safeties. So, yeah, Lester's, he's the incumbent. He's there. But Cincinnati and Ha Clinton Dix are kind of bracketed together at that other safety.
Yeah, they are, and both of them are going to play. And, Gary, in some situations, maybe in the dime situation, you might have them both on the field, maybe even nickel. We'll see. You'll have both Cincinnati and Ha Clinton Dix on the field together with Lester at times, possibly. So, again, all of those guys are talented and are going to play.
And Nick Perry and Landon Collins will probably play some, too.
Could well play, certainly. And I do think that Landon Collins will play.
All right. Let's... Okay, email. There we go. Who is A.J. McCarron's backup? Kendall and Gadsden? Well, that chart's out, and right now it's listed as Philip Ely, right?
Well, and I think, Gary, when you look at it, Philip Ely's had a lot of experience in terms of practice being here. He was here 2 springs ago. He graduated from high school early, went through spring practice, so he's kind of more acclimated to the offense, has a little bit better grasp of it than true freshman Alec Morris. So from that standpoint, certainly he has an advantage. And you'll probably see Alec Morris be redshirted. That would be my guess. And then again, there's also still an opportunity that Blake Sims, if needed, could play a role there at that position. He's worked out. Right. He's working out at that position. And this week, in fact, he is he's part of the scout team in terms of mocking Denard Robinson.
All right, Jennifer Hammer tells me we got one more email we got time for, and this one is from Travis and Alina. Rodney, do you think Lacey can make it through the season? The guy is injury prone.
Well, I mean, a lot of guys get injured. He played through his injuries. Certainly he was limited somewhat last year. But, yeah, I think he can make it through the season. And I do think that the question is, will they manage some of his carries? I do think that. Maybe, Gary, maybe he won't carry as much of the load because they do have some other backs, talking about T.J. Yeldon, Justin Fowler, D. Hart, and maybe even Kenyon Drake, who I think's got an opportunity to be a sensational player too.
All right, in our summertime predictions, we both picked Alabama to defeat Michigan. Have we seen anything that might change our mind? Not just the prediction, but the score coming up next here on Tider Insider TV. All right, a brand new year of predictions, Rodney. And during the summer, we both picked Alabama to run the table. But
I hope we're as successful this year as we were last year.
We were unbelievable last year. All right, Alabama and Michigan. Saturday night, how do you see it?
Well, Gary, when you're talking about a big game like this, the first place always looks up front. I mentioned it earlier, offensively and defensively. Michigan lost some guys on both sides of the ball. You look at Alabama, you've got that offensive line that has an opportunity to be one of the best there is in the country. Cyrus Kwanjo, Barrett Jones, Chance Warmack, Anthony Steen, DJ Fluker. I think Alabama lines up, runs the football, controls the clock, and what that does is that limits the amount of time that Denard Robinson can be on the field and maybe cuts down the opportunity for him to have all those big plays. But right now, it's always hard to predict a score in the first game, but I predicted 31-17.
You know, the line's 13, Rodney. You know, and I'm really right there with pretty much everything you said in this case. Alabama has better personnel. Now, having said that, it is a first game. Michigan's a proud program. Denard Robinson can be a difference maker. He can make plays even when he shouldn't be able to make them against a great defense like Alabama. I think they've got a puncher's chance to win the football game. Having said that, I think Alabama will keep Robinson intact. He'll make some plays. I don't think they'll let him make the big plays that he'll need to make to have a chance to win the game. I like Alabama by 14 as well. Not quite as many points for either team. 27-13, I think the Tide will find a way to get it done and start out the season 1-0. We shall see on Saturday night. All right, that's going to do it for this week's show. It's dinner time, and this week we're headed out to that awesome Southland restaurant in Cottondale, Alabama. And that salad bar is good, right?
It's good.
One of the best. Your wife, Tracy, loves it.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, I do too. And also, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch it online at WVUATV.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. We'll recap the Michigan game, look ahead to the home opener next Tuesday night, and we talk to you then. Have a good evening, everybody.